Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today is a Saturday, which is not normally a day I upload, but I have a special author interview for you guys, and I'm pretty excited about this one. I was excited to do this interview with David because he was one of the first authors that had reached out to me when I had started doing my book blog, which was back in either 2017 or 2018, a while ago. And so he sent me his book and I got to it eventually. I'm very excited that I got to it because it was a really good book. I enjoyed it quite a bit. And it's right up my alley because it has to do with superheroes and villains. So, yeah, I'm really excited to show you guys this interview, and without further ado, let's jump into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm here with David, and we are going to go over his book series, Fid's Crusade. This is the first book in the series. It's actually a signed copy, so thank you, David.
You're
I'll
welcome.
show off your signature. All he graciously gave me all of these books, and they're all signed copies, so that's like super cool. And these are the new hardcover editions, and I find them like absolutely stunning. I'm super pumped to like have action scenes on all three of them. They're just I just love it. So I'm really excited to jump into this interview and just kind of like ask you a bunch of questions about being an author because I think it's such a cool career, and like I cannot write to save my life. Like I write book reviews, but that's about it. Other than like actual like storyline writing, I'm really bad at that. So I'm just excited to pick your brain for a bit. Well, actually, David, did you want to talk about your book a little bit before we start, or your book series?
Okay. The Chronicles of Fid was my first published trilogy, and it follows the adventures and misadventures and also the psychological growth and moral change of a longtime supervillain who has to deal with his own trauma and his own guilt and in order to grow and decide who and what he's going to be moving forward. And yeah, it was a lot of fun to write. It was most of my work historically has all been epic fantasy or hard sci-fi. So jumping into this sort of superhero, supervillain genre was it was a lot of fun, but it was also very different from what I normally do. So it was absolutely a lot of fun to write, and I'm glad that I'm glad to share that work with other people.
I'm personally glad you jumped into this genre because I'm finding that this is like one of my favorite genres in the, I guess, subgenre in the sci-fi realm. I'm like enjoying this a lot. I just read a similar series, the one by Brandon Sanderson, which is like the Steelheart series, and I feel
Yes,
like your
yes.
books have a very similar vibe to that series. So yeah,
Well,
I'm really
thank
enjoying
you.
that
I'm
kind
a, I'm a huge fan of Brandon Sanderson. I will admit, I just posted this on your YouTube page. I'm more of a fan of his epic fantasy than his superhero stuff, but his I think that he is a great author, and that is a tremendously positive comparison. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. I have to read some of his epic fantasy. I haven't actually jumped into that part yet, but Marcus has been bugging me to like pick those ones up. So I'm sure I will get to it eventually. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I had a question that just popped into my mind when you were giving your introduction. And oh yeah, I wanted to know if Fid's Crusade, I feel like it wasn't your first writing experience. So if you could tell us a little bit more about how you like started writing and how you got into this as a career.
Wow. Okay. I've been writing so long that it's kind of difficult to remember any time when I wasn't already an author. I'm sure if I was actually born with the pen in my hand, my mom would have mentioned it. But beyond that, I know it was very young. Somewhere around here, I have well, I don't have it here, but somewhere there exists a fanfic I wrote for Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, which stopped being aired on television in 1978. So I must have been pretty young.
That's awesome.
So as far as I didn't, most of that writing time though was just as a hobby for fun. I didn't really consider starting this as a, to actual publish and release it until relatively recently. And I think
Mhm.
2017, 2018, when I decided, just finish a novel and see see what I can do. A lot of that had to do with learning new software that really worked for me for longer works, because before that I'd only been able to complete short stories, a lot of
Mhm.
short stories. But I'd found some new software that really helped me keep track of long story arcs, and that just everything just clicked, and I was able to put out the Chronicles of Fid, and I'm still working on more works now.
Right.
So as far as I guess when I was a kid, I was really uh, I was a lonely, bitter, depressed kid, and books were my escape from a world that I didn't really understand. And the people that wrote those books were my heroes. So for me, I always wanted to be an author. I always wanted to be, those are the people that I admired most, were the people that wrote the books that helped me escape.
Right.
And so, yeah, I've always wanted to be an author. I've always been writing, at least for myself as a hobby. And as
Mhm.
far as starting to publish, that was a more recent thing. It was more of a simple evolution of suddenly realizing that, hey, I have all the tools to share this with people instead of just doing it for fun.
Right. Um, it's funny because you say that those authors were your heroes, and then you wrote a book about a villain's origin story. So I think that's really funny. What that was actually one of my questions is what made you want to write a villain's origin story?
The origin of Dr. Fid in general is actually kind of an amusing story. I had been working on a science fiction novel and beating my head against a wall. I kept writing myself into a corner and realizing that it just wasn't working.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot of that was I didn't have the software tools yet that helped me, but a lot of it also was I just didn't have the full story in mind. I just had parts of it. I had the beginning and the end. I knew where it was supposed to go, but there was a lot of middle that I didn't really grok yet.
Right.
Uh, but I've since actually started working on that again. I'm going to finish it eventually. But anyways, I decided to take a break from that science fiction story and write just this little short story about superheroes and supervillains. And I had this idea of, because uh, there are superheroes everywhere right now in media and television, movies, Netflix, etc. And I thought that would be a fun genre to do, but I didn't want to do just another origin story of some hero. And when I read a bunch of superhero novels, it seemed like almost all of them were about teenagers who are just getting their powers and and going out and learning to be a hero. And I thought,
Mhm.
I want to do something in this genre, but different. So I started with this little short story that was just from Dr. Fid's perspective. And that's all I originally started out with. But then I had a writer's critique circle, some local writers group that I was joining or considering joining.
Mhm.
And I spoke to someone who asked me what I was working on. I said, "Oh, I'm doing a story set in a superhero universe." And they said, "Oh, you might be better off in another group. We're real authors here."
Oh,
So I said,
wow.
"Okay, hold my beer. I am going to now write a story, a nuanced story about a deep character set in this world." And that was kind of the goal, was to write something deep in
Yeah.
a superhero genre and prove that it could be done. That this is, literary work, but also a
Wow.
lot of fun.
As if somebody had the audacity to say that to you. But like at the same time, it lit that fire under you to like have that passion to pull out this storyline. So like I'm not upset about it, but but still, geez.
Well, it
Wow.
happens. The truth is, I've found some wonderful writers circles and
Hmm.
critique circles around here, and I've also found some that didn't work for me. So I want to show up to these things. It's always with I'm trying to see if this is fits with me, not with trying to make myself fit with them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was absolutely, it was kind of this passive aggressive focus where I just wanted to prove them wrong, that I would, and seems to have worked, because the books have been greeted with moderate success, and people seem to like them.
Yeah,
So
no, that's awesome. It's also fantastic that your main character is, like you said, it's not a teenager. It's like a middle-aged man, which is not the norm for superhero, like that genre, I guess. So I think that
mhm.
that's really cool that you're actually following along with somebody that's like in the middle stages of their life and not just fresh into the scene, right? Like they've experienced this and they've been through it.
Yeah, I think some of that is just, I find that especially as I age myself, I find myself wanting to write characters that are dealing with, well, the types of problems that adults deal with. I find that while I don't necessarily dislike young adult fiction, I feel that there's an awful lot of that, and I wanted to write something a little bit different. So that was another part of my goal, was to focus on something that was appropriate for my my age group.
Yeah, well, and it definitely sets you guys, like, it sets your book apart from others too, which is a good thing. Um, Jumping back, you said that you write a lot of short stories. Have you published any of these other short stories?
No, unfortunately, I've lost pretty much everything that's older than a couple of years, and that's when I started switching over to writing novels. So I
Okay.
had all of my backups got lost. I have no idea where, but I've moved several times, and at some point in one of those moves, I lost probably around 30 or 40 short stories that I really would
Oh,
have liked to be giving away to fans and publishing now, but.
yeah, that's unfortunate because I personally would want to read some of those short stories.
Well,
So,
if ever I find them again, I'll let you know.
yeah, send them my way. Okay, so one of my other questions is, where do you draw inspiration from when writing your novels?
Wow. Um, Inspiration comes from a lot of places. It's not easy to say like one thing. It's more that I will open myself up to try different things and really think about what the character might be experiencing, and then I'll go out and either do research or, even better, go to places and try and experience it. Like, for example, in one of my current novels, there's a character that spends a huge amount of time on these rafts. So I'm trying to get out to a lake and spend some time on docks and just experience what the character would be experiencing. And
Hmm.
that helps get me in the right mindset. As far as plot lines, that, you know, I'm not exactly sure where what causes the inspiration, as much as it's just a lot of intense thought about what all the different characters want and how they would interact. Because that's, um, I think one of my biggest problems early on was that I'd come up with a plot and then I'd come up with characters and they wouldn't necessarily match. So I'd get to a point where, you know, the characters would want to do something and the villain would want to do something, and you realize that realistically they should just be going in two different directions now, and they're never going to interact again. They're done with each other.
Yeah.
Uh, or something like that. Or basically it just didn't coincide with the plot I originally wanted to write. So instead, now what
Right.
I do is I build my plots around the characters, and I spend a lot of time really doing deep thought about trying to build the characters up, and then modifying the plot to match their wants, desires, and even if it's subconscious, things that they would do and or mistakes they might make.
Hmm.
So that's, I think, where the plot lines seem to evolve now.
Okay. So another thing that I was thinking was, you have these like superhero villain stories. Do you draw any inspiration from comic books, perhaps?
I'm a huge comic book fan and a fan of the genre of written prose superhero novels. So I'm sure to some extent that, yes, there's an awful lot of inspiration. I often say that Dr. Fidd is kind of as kind of if Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark had a baby, and that baby had one bad day, like the Joker suggested in the Killing Joke,
Yeah.
that's Dr. Fidd. He's a brilliant character who is broken. And
Yeah.
that was if you've never read The Killing Joke, by the way, I highly recommend it. It's Alan Moore's Batman story, and it's all about the Joker's theory that everyone is just one bad day from being insane.
Yeah.
That's not it's brilliantly written. It's Alan Moore, so
Yeah.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
So it's not that I tried copying any of these superheroes. It's that I read comics, and that informs the world building, because there are things about the comic book genre, about superheroes having weird lives, that just the types of weirdness you get when you have hundreds of authors writing the universe, you get sort of weird overlaps and different types of strange things going on in the universe. And I wanted to make sure that that was in Fidd's Crusade and the Chronicles of Fid in general.
Yeah, and I really like that your main character, Dr. Fidd, he like you can tell that he has all of this intelligence. You also express a lot of his emotional side too, and you get to see like him as a person, and it makes him like it doesn't make him feel like a villain, it makes him feel like an anti-hero. I mean, like you've probably seen me say that every time I'm like talking about one of your books. But
That
yeah,
was
like
that the one of the major goals when I watch like the Avengers or the Thor movies. I found Loki one of my favorite characters,
yeah.
largely because you could watch him break in Thor,
Mm.
and if especially in the Avengers, if you really watch him, he looks he doesn't look like he's in control of himself. He looks like he's flailing the entire way through. He's acting like he's in control, and you could always see that he's like just on the edge of breaking. And I thought that was such a nuanced performance. And so when I was trying to design Dr. Fidd, he's a very different character than Loki. But at the same time, I was thinking to myself that the villain in all these superhero stories is where the story originates. It's the heroes are very reactive. The
Right.
heroes are the ones that, when the Joker's robbing a bank, Batman shows up to stop him. But if Joker stays in and watches TV all night, Batman's just hanging out on a rooftop looking like a gargoyle or something. He doesn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I wanted to write a story where the story originates. This where do superhero stories start, and they start with a supervillain who is motivated to do something, to make changes, to cause problems. And I realized that they have reasons for it. That was one of the things I wanted to really focus on with Fidd's Crusade, is the what actually causes these superhero stories. And it's not as simple as just, oh, he's just a bad guy. It's almost always, there's, at least on the good stories, there's something that caused it. And I really wanted to explore that and focus on Fidd's humanity, even though he's done horrible things and is honestly not fully competent, emotionally competent, especially at the
Yeah.
beginning of the story.
Mhm.
And that was exploring that was actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I really like that you show that the heroes aren't always the best heroes either. Like even heroes mess up and have not necessarily like a bad side to them, but they I don't know, I'm trying to think of how to word this. How the heroes are always like I guess they're not as morally gray as a villain is, but they still tiptoe on the lines of being like moral and not moral. Does that make sense?
Well, one thing I tried to make, it's a kind of subtle thing, but Dr. Fidd, who's the narrator of this story, is unreliable on that. He has a tendency to presume that that if they're a hero, they must have all these flaws. They must, because that's his mindset. And especially very often he'll presume this and be proven wrong. And that was one of the things I want to do. It's not that the heroes are perfect, it's that they're human. Everyone's human underneath their mask, even the robots.
Yeah.
That was kind of what I was trying to get, is that the heroes are human, and so are the villains, and so is pretty much everyone, with a few villainous exceptions that have been driven completely insane or are completely selfish, but even that's kind of rare. That the vast majority are just trying to get by, or if they have reasons for what they're doing that are rational, or at the very least understandable for the experiences that they went through.
I also really wanted to say that I like that you gave the villains their own bar. I think that's so fun that they like go meet there half the time and just like have beers with each other and hang out at a villain bar. Like, that's cool. My next question is, how big is your TBR pile?
Oh, wow. Currently it's pretty large. I'm not sure. I stopped my YouTube channel, but I have been having a bunch of physical problems lately with my hands, with my eyes, so I haven't been spending as much time sitting around and reading as I used to. And I bought a bunch of books that I haven't read yet. Normally, I read very, very quickly. So for me, normally I buy like 3 or 4 books at the bookstore. I come home and I read them, and then I go to sleep. So
All
it's
in one day?
as about 3 books a day when I'm really like focused.
Wow.
And I, like I said, I've been reading from when I was a little kid, and I've always been a fast reader.
Yeah.
I lose track of names and dates very easily, but plot lines and character arcs and environments I keep in my head. I visualize them as I go. So I'll forget the main character's name 20 minutes after I finish the book, but I'll remember everything they did and what it felt like all the way through. But I am a speed reader. And lately, I think I have around 12 or 13 books that I picked up and have not read yet, and that distresses me a great deal.
Well, that's pretty small in TBRs in regards to what I have, because I'm pretty sure my TBR is like over 100 books or something like that. So you're doing pretty good. I know you just said that you're not reading that much right now, but what was your most current read?
Let's see, most current read. I think I just finished reading Martha Wells', the most recent book in the Murderbot series.
Oh, I've heard those are really good.
Yeah, they are very good. They're wonderful character arcs and very character-driven stories. I feel that there's little things that she did with the use of an unreliable narrator that I found inspiring.
That's what everybody's been saying.
And I find that such a tremendously likable character. Also Rob J. Hayes, I read a bunch of his recently. I think I forget the name of the series. Like I said, I keep forgetting names, but
Yeah, that's fine.
that was another series that a trilogy that I just sort of chewed through. I picked them up on my iPad and was able to read those really quick. Loved them. So I have been still doing some reading.
That's good. So one question that I like to ask all the authors is, what is your favorite reading spot? Because I know that all readers have different areas that they like to read in, or like reading nooks. So I'm curious.
Unfortunately, this is going to be kind of sad. I used to read on my futon, and I'd lie down, and my cat Freya would come over and curl up underneath my chin, and I'd lie on my belly.
Yeah.
And I read like that pretty much, probably thousands of books over the years that I had Freya. And unfortunately, she passed away. And ever since then, I haven't been able to read lying down anymore. I just can't, because there's nothing purring against my throat.
Aw, I'm sorry to hear that.
But so honestly, I'm kind of still, I think right now I most of the time read in the living room in front of the television. I turn off the TV, but that's the quietest room in our new house. So that's kind of my space, I guess.
Right on. I like to sit. We have a deck on the back of our house, so I like to like
Hmm.
sit out there when it's sunny and just have a some sort of drink out there while I read a book. It's nice. It's peaceful. So my next question was, this is just kind of like a fun one, but if you could describe yourself as a book title, what would it be?
Huh.
And like you can think,
Okay.
if you want to think about this one for a while, I can ask a different question so you can think about it.
Ask something else and I'll come back to that
Okay.
one.
Okay. My other question was, did you come up with the costume designs for Dr. Fid, or was it a designer? Because like on the cover here, I know obviously you came up with it in your storyline. Um,
Hmm.
did you have somebody design this for you? Because like I feel like they did a very good job in making this costume come to life.
Well, I had I originally came up with the idea and I gave sketches to an artist, but that is not my artwork on the cover. I hired a artist who Anton Kokorev, I think. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. It's written down in the back inside the credits
I
in
can
there.
check.
But he did an excellent job of interpreting my work. I kept giving him little suggestions to make sure that it matched my vision.
Mm.
But it was it was my, I guess, design, his interpretation of my words, and he did an excellent job. I did do a lot of sketches and things for him to work from, so it wasn't. I guess it really was my design, but his interpretation really brought it to life.
Yeah, so that's really cool. Yeah, I'm just fascinated by this costume because it, like, if this villain showed up and was going to like terrorize, and they just looked like a blob of space, and then you see all these glowing red lines coming out of it, I like that. That would just be terrifying. So I think it is like really well done. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Okay. So yeah, we were I jumping back to the comic books. I know we were talking about comic books. So would you say The Killing Joke is your favorite? Because one of my questions was I was going to ask you which comic books are your favorite.
Okay, wow. It's kind of funny. When I think about my favorite comic books, I think about Neil Gaiman's The Sandman series. That
Hmm.
was kind of transformative for me because of how nuanced the characterizations were and how his world building was so detailed and so imaginative. Also, Alan Moore's Watchmen and The Killing Joke is right up there. Um, there was a couple Punisher storylines that I was very fond of, a couple Wolverine storylines. I'm actually fond of a lot of Frank Miller's work too, and Chris Claremont's run on the New Mutants. I think actually the probably one of the most pivotal stories for me was New Mutants. I think it was I think 42. I don't remember which one it was. It was the one, there was an issue of New Mutants that dealt with a kid that was bullied into suicide. And it
Oh
was
wow.
incredibly touching and incredibly heartbreaking. And I mean, yeah, a lot of it was an allegory for homosexuality and being bullied for that. But in this case, he was being bullied for being suspected as being a mutant.
Oh.
And but it was so incredibly well written. I think it was issue 42, but that for me was one of those comics that really woke me up and made me realize that comics are not simple. They could
Mhm.
tell detailed, nuanced, incredibly powerful and important stories using this format. And the characters that they created could be they weren't just there for action sequences, they could do more. And that was something that really sort of focused and changed my view of comics ever since.
Wow.
So, and also, I think Claremont wrote a graphic novel, God Loves, Man Kills, which is another one that I highly recommend.
Hmm.
Um,
I will look that up. Yeah, no, that's really like cool that comics can be so powerful and emotional. Speaking on New Mutants, have you seen the new movie yet?
I have not. I've been wanting, I mean, again, New Mutants was one of those properties that I was such a huge fan when I was a kid. Um, at the same time, if they did a bad job, it's going to make me cry because that's one of those things that uh, it was so important to me as a kid.
Yeah.
And plus, movie theaters aren't open here yet. So,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet either, but I'm a little nervous that they're gonna screw it up. I know it's not getting the greatest ratings right now, so yeah, that makes me nervous. But hopefully it's all right. I'll be okay. I'll be happy if it's like even in the middle. Did you come up with the book title yet?
I have not. I'm terrible at book titles. Heck, the Fid's Crusade. The one of my favorite reviews was from Tim Pratt, and he mentioned in, I think it was one of the Locust magazines, or he reviewed my book, and he made the comment that I hate the title, but but I love the book, and he's right. I'm terrible with titles, so I'm gonna leave this one to you. Come up with a title for me.
Okay. I don't know if I'll come up with it in this interview. I'm not that fast of a thinker, but we'll see. Okay. How long were you planning this series before you wrote it? So did you like have a lot of planning phases before you jumped into like pen and paper? Or I guess
Not
keyboard?
Not for this one. This was kind of a unique situation because it kind of came together very quick. Most of my works, I do a lot of planning and world building, but because superhero universes are chaotic by nature, they all have, like I mentioned before, 100 writers in this universe, and they've been going back for 50 years and having different storylines that conflict with each other. That's kind of built into comic book universes.
Yeah.
So it actually became very easy to just sort of not exactly slap things together, but the world building, I could do a lot that was, quote, generic superhero, and then just focus more on the characters and the world building. So it actually didn't take that long. At the same time, I did steal from other works that I'd been working on to create the characters. The character of Dr. Fidd, a lot of his mannerisms were from a character from another novel that I eventually abandoned. So the character was there. And then I just sort of co-opted him and put him into, and realized that he would have made a interesting supervillain. So I pulled, so there are characters that took years to sort of create, and I just sort of grabbed them and shoved them all into one place.
Well, that's kind of good too, because in that sense, the book that you abandoned, like you're not abandoning it fully because you're taking parts of it and incorporating it into like an actual story that you did finish. So like I think that's really cool. You're using all
Well,
elements of your writing.
the problem now is that I can't go back and write the old one if I
Yeah, I guess.
decided to, because there's just so many similarities with the main
Yeah.
character, or even a side character in this case. He wasn't the main character of that story, but either way, it would be, oh, this is this professor over here is Dr. Fidd with the serial numbers filed off.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's
I
funny.
do need to rethink that other story before I revisit it. I'll write it eventually. So
So when you were doing the planning of the books, did you plan out the entire trilogy all at once, or did you do it kind of like book by book?
I had an idea of what each book, what the character arc would be across all
Mm,
three. The first book was intended to show who Dr. Fidd is at the starting. The second book was really about how Dr. Fidd became Dr. Fidd, his childhood, how he became the sort of person who could be broken in the way that we saw in book one, basically. But book one was how Dr. Fidd broke and and who he is today. Book two is how he became the sort of person who could break that way, and book three is who he's going to be moving forward. That was always my goal, was to have those story arcs. As far as the specific plotline arcs, I had certain ideas from the beginning, but
mhm.
it was a little bit flexible, and I did each novel's specific plot separately. It was more that I had just sort of goalposts and things I wanted to reach for the full trilogy.
Right. And yeah, that's really cool. I was just saying while you were going on, I'm really excited to finish the trilogy and see how it's all wrapped up. I don't know when I'll be reading that last book, but I'll probably save it for a month when I have books that I don't want to get to, because then when I get to it, I'll be like, yes. So
Well,
I am
I
looking.
look forward to that too. So.
Yeah, no. So I am very excited to see how this trilogy concludes. Um, I think that's wrapping up most of the questions I have. One other question that I ask sometimes, so I might as well ask, is do you have any book that you're looking forward to that isn't out yet but is coming out?
Let's see. The next book in Jim Butcher's Dresden Files series, I think I forget the name. It's after Peace Talks. There's a new book coming out in just a month or two, I think, and I'm really looking forward to that. I'm a huge fan of Jim Butcher's, and also Brendan Sanderson. I think well, there was something coming out by him, but I look forward to anything he writes. So yeah.
Is it Rhythm of War? I know that
I
one just came out, or the cover
did it.
reveal. It didn't come
Oh,
out, but the
okay.
cover was revealed.
I think that was it. Yes.
Yeah.
So
I don't
those are
know
the
it.
two that I can think of offhand. The truth is that there are a bunch of authors that I follow, and I don't really know what they're working on, but whenever they put something out, I'll buy it immediately. Lois McMaster Bujold, Jim Butcher, Ilona Andrews. I could start from A and work my way down the alphabet, I guess.
And you say you're not good with names. Look at you.
Well, authors are different. Like I said, they're my heroes.
Yeah, that's fair. That was actually my last question that I was going to wrap up with, was who your favorite authors are, but I feel like you just started naming some of them.
My very favorite is Ilona and no, I'm sorry, I just started with her. My very favorite is Lois McMaster Bujold.
What does she
Um,
write?
let's see, the Miles Verkosigan, or the Verkosigan saga, which is for me, it was very powerful. It's one of the first series that I read in science. Is a science fiction story, and the main character was not the fit, strong character who
Hmm.
square-jawed hero. He was a short, unhealthy, brittle-boned, socially awkward but brilliant character, and it's tremendous. If you haven't read the Verkosigan saga, it's the first one with Miles Verkosigan is The Warrior's Apprentice, and you could start the series there, and you will not regret it. It is brilliant. It was one of these stories that really made me rethink how to write heroes, because it wasn't about the action. Uh, It wasn't about being stronger or faster. It was about willpower and 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 thought and forward momentum. You'll definitely get that if you read them. He's a character who succeeds not because he overpowers opponents, but because he just outthinks them, outacts them, just pushes beyond the simple solution. And I absolutely loved it. It was tremendously influential on me.
That's awesome.
Also writes a bunch of other series. She's one of the authors that does equally well in science fiction and fantasy, and that was another thing that really, really enthralled me. So.
Nice. Well, I'll have to look her up and see like some of her stuff.
Great, add to your TBR list. Wonderful.
Yeah, the thing that's over 100 books already. Yeah.
What you need to do is put something on your Patreon where people can, give you money to focus on certain books. That would be,
That's a
because
good
I
idea.
love your reviews, but if I was going to wait for you to get to like a certain Brandon Sanderson book, I might be a while.
Yeah, that's true. That is a good idea. I'll think about adding that on there. Okay, well, that probably will wrap up our interview. If
Okay.
any of you guys want to check out David's books, I will put all of the links to his books so you can purchase them for Amazon, and I'll put the Goodreads links too if you want to check them out.
If you want, I can send you links that include Kobo, other sources such as let's see, Kobo, Barnes and Noble, Apple, etc. So I'll send you a link to other places where that book can be bought.
And I do believe you have these on, there's like a link for audiobook version 2, right?
For books 1 and 2, yes.
and 2?
Book 3 is coming out shortly.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely include that because I know some of the readers definitely like listening to audiobooks as opposed to reading. So yeah, okay, well, I'll include those as well. So I'll have that all in the description for you guys. So you can check out David's books.
Okay.
David, thank you so much for being a part of this author interview. I had a lot of fun, and it was just really cool getting to pick your brain and learn more about like how you write.
Well, this was a lot of fun, and I look forward to seeing this posted. And hi to all of your fans.
All right. Well, thanks, guys.
And that was my interview with David. Thank you so much for checking out the interview and watching along. If you know any authors that might be interested in an interview, comment down below. If you guys want to support me, I have a Patreon and a Ko-fi page, which I'll put in the description down below. My Patreons have actually been coming together for polls to vote on books that I'll be reading, so that's pretty exciting. I'm currently reading one of them right now. I just think it's fun to be interacting with my Patreons and stuff like that, so I'm having a good time with it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, hit that bell notification button so you get notified when I post videos. I post videos every Monday and Thursday, and occasionally, like today, Saturdays. And until next time, keep on reading.